In human beings, there is this capacity for a higher level of art, whatever the art form is. And that will always have less recognition, less support than the more broadly accessible. If you write a nice little melody with a nice little accompaniment, boy, you're in. But if you now make a polyphonic contrapuntal thing, you lose half your audience right away. And I have, I'm smiling as I'm saying all this. I have no problems. I'm not complaining about anything. It's just that when people try to pin me down, I happen not to like that or prefer that, it isn't that simple. I just look at every intended work of art, be it a rock piece or whatever it is. I look at it at its quality as it became created. And I have a pretty analytical mind, and I see the good things, and I see, the things that are very commonplace. And there's nothing wrong with commonplace, except don't try to elevate it to the level of the highest art. I think we have to keep these things straight, especially in a world where everything is publicity and selling and labeling and promoting. Man, you can sell the most unbelievable crap and make $1 million with it. We live in a dangerous world in that respect, where anything can be sold and made to sound better than it really is. And I think some of us just need to be, on guard about that. But, we all live together. My father went, during an intermission, was talking with one of his colleagues who happened to be a horn player, fourth horn of the orchestra, and he said, my Gunther, he's getting bored with the flute. What? He has no talent for the violin and the piano. He said, well, try a horn, So Schulze comes over to our apartment in Woodside, Long Island, and he has a cigar box and a horn. He says, stand over there by the wall. I was about 20 feet away, and he's looking at me. And I could tell he was looking at my lips, at my would-be embouchure. And I said, I got it. And he went to the cigar box, and there were about 50 mouthpieces in there. And he rummaged around, and he picked one mouthpiece, and he gave it to me. And he said, play something. And he handed me a horn, took the mouthpiece, stuck it in the horn, and he said, okay, now you hold it like this, and now play. And he didn't direct me to my mouth, He just, I said, what do I do? Well, just put it to your lips. And what he was doing, he wasn't showing me. He wanted to see where I naturally would put this mouthpiece. And this will come back to your story about not getting a sound out of a horn, because here's what happened. So I did this, and I went, and out came the most beautiful F, a fifth below middle C. Not a fart, not some groaning sound, just this very nice, decent, long tone. Oh, he said, my God, what a talent, Well, that's the beginning of how I became a horn player. And 2 years later, I was already a professional at the very highest level.
Now, because Mr. Schuller is such a fine conductor as well as a composer, I have invited him to come and conduct his piece himself. And I will step down and become the speaker, taking my orders from him. So without any further explanation, here is Gunther Schuller's third stream composition, Journey into Jazz, with a narration written by the well-known jazz critic Nat Hentoff. And here is Gunther Schuller himself. This is the story of Peter Parker, a boy who learned about jazz. When he was still quite small, Peter Parker had strong musical tastes. When his father sang, Peter moaned. And when his mother sang, Peter howled. By the time he was 5, Peter had his own toy trumpet. At 6, he was given a phonograph that was as small and sturdy as he. And at 7, a transistor radio was added to help satisfy Peter's huge hunger for music.
There is a wonderful thing, or there was anyway then, I don't know whether it still exists to the extent. It's a kind of closed world, that inner circle of jazz greats. And you don't get in there very easily. Of course, the jam sessions and cutting contests were one arena. If you survived there and came up in the ranks, you were fine. But what usually happened is that one of those people in the inside would discover somebody, and then he would say to the rest of them, "This guy's all right. He's one of us." And that was it. Whereas in classical music, you have to take an audition, and all that sort of thing. Here, once you're sanctified, so to speak, you're in. And so that's how I became so involved with every great jazz musician that was active at that time. In the last 6 years, through a disciple of mine named Rand Blake, I once told him about my 12-tone row that I've been using. I've been using the same row since 1976. I've now written 41 pieces with the same row. And I said to myself right away when I started on this, I said, now look, if every piece starts to sound alike, forget it, But they haven't. In fact, every piece sounds amazingly different, which is I could go further on that to show what a big thing that is about 12-tone. But anyway, I told Rand Blake about it, and finally he said, listen, write it down for me, even though he doesn't really read music, but he has very good ears. And he has now been using my row and has taught all of his students at the New England Conservatory to use my row. But they do not do anything you call strict 12-tone, that is to say, organizationally. So that, yes, they will take that as a theme and use all of it or parts of it or segments of it in their improvisation. But there's as much 12-tone in their improvisation as there is the row. But anyway, it's something that I really hadn't anticipated. And now all these folks in jazz are using my row, Joe Lovano. They call it my magic row. I was always very serious about music and composing, and to me, those idols, Beethoven and Mozart and Bach, that's what it was for me. And lighter music, I'm famous for being involved with jazz and ragtime, so I have nothing against lighter music per se, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do for myself. I wanted to write music that is not written in any way to entertain someone, or I hope it'll be entertaining and all of that. And I hope people will like my music, but that was never the first. The first thing was to write something, hopefully, if your talent permits it, that is original and deep in all of its expressive capacities, and that is well put together, of course, and all of that, and that makes a statement. the main thing about any of this is just do whatever you're doing at the very highest creative, imaginative quality. So it's a work of art that makes a statement, has a meaning, and contributes something meaningful. Because the systems and all of these labels, 12-tone, tonality, atonality, this kind of music, that kind of music, those are just all labels which are basically meaningless until somebody tells you what they mean. So there is no system, no method, no school, no technique which guarantees that you will write a good piece or a great piece, or guarantees that you'll write a bad piece. I mean, the systems have nothing to do with it. It's the individual creativity and talent of the creator that makes something worthwhile, whatever the system is.